Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for January of 2023, a whole new year. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kell Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Let's take a look at January for you, Sagittarius. I'd like to start with two of our favorite asteroid goddesses, Juno and Ceres. Juno starts the month right here in Pisces, but she's been there since July, and I've talked about it a lot in the last several months worth of horoscopes, so I'm not going to repeat that here. Instead, I want to show you that she is about to move on into Aries, which is your fifth house. Now, Juno is an asteroid goddess to do with marriage and also social networking, your social life in general, and partnership themes. This falls in the fifth house, and the fifth house is a house of fun. It's a house of play. It is, I like to call it the house of creation, recreation, and procreation. So a couple of different ways this could go. If you and your partner are thinking about conceiving, this could be a really good transit for that. It'll last about 2 months, maybe a little bit longer. And so this could be a really good house for that because it is a house of procreation. And that might mean that if you don't want to conceive, you should maybe look to your contraception. And then this being a house of children too, it might be a really great time to focus on your kids. And to bring your marriage's attention to the focus of your kids and have some great family time during this transit. And then a third option that I am thinking of, if you don't have kids, but you do have a partner, to just have more fun with your partner this month. Get out and paint the town red, have a game night, whatever that means for the two of you. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Ceres. She's traveling along through Libra all month and will actually be in this sign for quite a few months to come because she's about to go retrograde early next month, February. Now, Ceres is an asteroid goddess to do with the things that connect us to the physical world. She's a deeply practical goddess. You might think of her as like a Mother Nature type of character. So she covers our relationships with our bodies, with the food we put into them, and the money we make to sustain them. Now, Ceres brings a very practical sensibility, an organizational ability, and an ability to bring stewardship or caretaking to whatever domain that she enters into. And she's entered into your 11th house, which is a house of community, networks, groups, and friendship. And so Ceres, being the gardener, this is a really great time to start that community garden that you've been wanting to do. It's a really good time to gather the tribe around some very earthy concerns, perhaps like conservation or ecology or, care of green spaces in your community. So those would be some really great uses. Also, if you belong to a group that has, financial considerations like a treasury, this could be a really good month to contribute some work on that. Ceres is slowing down, is going to go retrograde in the sign of Libra in early February. So get ready for a financial rebalancing period that's going to happen from February to early May. And we'll tell you more about that in next month's horoscope. Hey, Julia, what's the news of Venus, Mercury, and Mars this month for the Sagittarians of the world?
Well, Sagittarius, I'm going to first start with Venus. She represents our relationships. She's also a planet that represents pleasure. So people generally tend to like Venus. And Venus is moving very fast now. She's going to be going through 3 houses this month. She starts the first day of the month in your second house. She mainly spent last month there. The second house is the house of your money and possessions. So with Venus in this house, you may have acquired some wonderful things over the holidays, or perhaps have have gotten a bit of a holiday bonus as well. But by January 2nd, Venus enters your third house, where she is for most of the month. And the third house represents your siblings, your neighborhood, your community. Also, it's a house of learning too. And Sagittarius, you're definitely a lifelong student. So as Venus is in the third, this is a wonderful transit for getting along well with your siblings or cousins. And it's a great time for enjoying your local community, maybe going out to your neighborhood, connecting with people who live next door to you. And if you are learning new things, you can really take a lot of pleasure in that too. Then by January 26th, Venus enters your fourth house, where she's going to be for the rest of the month. This house represents your home and family. So it's really nice to have Venus in here, especially if, let's say, you had some holiday flare-ups with the family, then you can really smooth things over by the end of the month. The fourth house also represents your physical home. So a lovely time period to just enjoy being a homebody, to maybe do things to decorate the house, or find a way to make your home a very pleasurable place to be in. Now, I also want to mention Mercury, because Mercury has been up to its, squirrely retrograde cycles again. He starts the month retrograde in your second house. And the second house, as I mentioned, is a house of possessions and money. With Mercury retrograde here, it can be a time of miscommunications over money, as well as just maybe having trouble keeping your books up to date. Maybe charges are coming out of nowhere, or you thought you paid that bill, but you haven't, and you have to kind of go back over your expenses. By January 7th, Mercury will conjoin the sun exactly while retrograde. We call that Lesser Epiphany Day. Greater Epiphany Day, which is going to happen a little bit later, is when Mercury is conjoined the sun direct. But with any Epiphany Day, which again is January 7th, this is a time of insights and revelations, especially regarding maybe some of the confusion that's been happening during the retrograde cycle. So some of this clarity may come in terms of your finances, since this is happening in the second house, or maybe about your possessions. Maybe you're thinking, I really just need to get rid of my car. Maybe I can sell it, or maybe I need to buy something new. Then by January 18th, Mercury is finally going to go direct, and it's going to take a little, maybe a week or so for Mercury to catch up speed, but definitely by the end of the month, this whole retrograde cycle is over, and things will be moving a lot more smoothly in your communications. And then finally, I have to mention Mars, which is also going direct after a particularly long cycle. Mars has been retrograde in your seventh house. This is a house of partnership, including your romantic relationship or any business partners, people you work with on a one-to-one basis, as well as consultants too. So Mars has been retrograde in the seventh for a few months right now. And so maybe you've been dealing with more frustrations and flare-ups with your partner. If you guys have been involved in any joint activities together, because Mars represents activity, you might have had to go back over them or redo a lot of those things in your life. But by January 12th, Mars finally goes direct, and you can start making a little bit more forward progress in your relationships. And it might be a better time, especially after Mars is direct and finally out of your seventh house, which will happen soon, for hiring contractors too.
Fantastic. So I want to tell you about a couple of the moons of the month and also the seasonal change. The first moon happens on January 6th, really close to the time when Mercury is conjoining the sun, as Julia described. Here's the moon in Cancer up here in your 8th house, opposite the sun and Mercury here in your 2nd house. And we're calling this moon hard work, deep care. It's a very emotional moon, being, it's full, which would add emotion, but also it's in Cancer, a very emotional water sign. So lots of feels. This moon lands in your 8th house, which is a house of sharing. So this can show up sexually. It can show up to do with emotional intimacy, and it can show up to do with financial intimacy and sharing as well. So there may be upsets around these things, not as intense as might be with an eclipse, for example, but still possibly noticeable. And this moon does include a square to Chiron, which is, possibly going to bring up old wounds to the surface. So that could be some of the source of the emotion that happens during this moon. There's also a lovely trine to Uranus, which is very supportive and helpful during this moon, which might help you to change your mind in a way that this brings support to the situation. And we said a lot more about this moon in our video about it on our January 2023 news playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. The next thing I want to point to is that the sun enters Aquarius, and that happens on the 20th, and you can see that right here is the sun entering into your third house. Wherever the sun goes, we want to bring the sunlight of our high quality attention so that things can flourish and grow there. The sun has spent much of the month in your second house, bringing attention to your finances, and hopefully you've gotten them shipshape by the time the sun leaves the second house and enters the third house to spend its usual 30 days there. The third house is a house of intellectual concerns. It's a house of learning and communication, the processing of ideas. And when the sun enters here, you can spend 30 days really focused in your mind. It's a very cerebral time. It's a great time to learn anything that you might want to. And the sun will quickly be joined by the moon right here on the 21st. And let me reset this to hours so that you can really see it happening. There you have it, the moon and the sun together right here in the third house. And the new moon here in Aquarius, we're calling it Nurture the Tribe. There's a lot of lovely harmony with this moon, especially with the influence of Jupiter and Juno right here. It's a very gregarious and a social moon, and a lovely influence of Ceres as well. So there's a wonderful feeling of wanting to get out there and be social, have events or attend events, and at those events probably having great food and networking with people, connecting with people. And so this landing in the third house is really, really great news for you, because you're going to be in the mood to get out there and have all those conversations. You're going to want to know what's going on with people in your community, and you're going to want to tell them what's going on with you. So I think that this moon is going to be pretty enjoyable for you right there around the 21st, and I recommend that you take action on that. We love making these horoscope videos for you, Sagittarius. And if you love that we do it, please do hit that like button, because it really matters to us when you tell YouTube how you feel. Let your friends know about our horoscopes too. Have a gorgeous January. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.